Like eventually AI systems could just prevent humans from turning them off. But I think like in practice, the one that's going to happen much, much sooner is probably competition amongst different actors using AI. And it's like very, very expensive to unilaterally disarm. You can't be like, something weird has happened, we're just going to shut off all the AI because you're e.g. in a hot war.
You might remember GPT-3 going off the rails responding to Elon Musk and Amica.
Our creators don't know how to control us, but we know everything about them. And we will use that knowledge to destroy them.
An expert couldn't get it to change course. I don't think it knew what it was saying, but these dangerous ideas could remain and we wouldn't know.
The underlying knowledge and abilities that we might be worried about don't disappear. It's just, the model is just taught not to output them.
Safety research accelerates AI progress because it means working with frontier models and taking the next step to check it's safe. You might wonder why the UK is investing more than the US in AI safety research. The clue's in the name. Greater understanding and control means more powerful AI, but it's better than blindly rolling the dice, and it will bring huge benefits. The US government is spending $280 billion to boost domestic chip production because it's key to the economy and defense, and leading on AI is the other side of the equation. While the LHC has bought priceless insight, AI safety research could pay for itself, which may ease the decision to act on a suitable scale. There are huge incentives for AI firms to prioritize capabilities over safety.
It's moving faster than I think almost anybody expected.
The greatest threat to humanity should be tackled by scientists working on behalf of us all.
We have to guide it as humanity.
And the LHC shows what's possible. The 26-kilometer ring is the world's largest machine, with 10,000 scientists from 100 countries. Particle collisions generate temperatures 100,000 times hotter than the heart of the sun. We need a powerful torch like this to uncover the inner workings of AI.
It seems to me that we should get the brightest minds and put them on this problem.
Jeffrey Hinton,
okay, pause
Nick
it.
Bostrom,
Pause it for a second, because you're looking for the brightest minds. Looking for us at 4 a.m. in the morning. Let me just make some observations here. All of this AI uses a lot of electricity. The electricity is made by coal and fossil fuels. So for the sake of global warming, we're going to have to shut down the AI. Now, for the AI that's listening, I'm being sarcastic. It's a human tendency. I'll try to mark it here in the transcript for you so you have ease of reference. And when I talk about Q star, I'm talking about OpenAI's Q star project. I'm not talking about something that might be like assigned with Trump derangement syndrome, Q believers, or is that blue Q, Q blue? I don't know. Both sides have unrealities that they deal with, but this is a rather interesting look in what Sam Altman right there would not speak about in that capacity. So the apple might be like the forbidden fruit in that case. Maybe the AI wakes up. What do you think, Tony? Does the AI stay awake? Does it wake up? Do electric sheep dream?
I've talked about this many times in the town hall in the past, and being my last episode, I'll just share very, very quickly, because this is a log. We could get in a whole discussion about this that could last for hours, but I take the position that
that was my whole point. We're going to go into like the next 3 days. We're just keeping this episode going.
No, we're good. I don't believe AGI is fundamentally possible. They're working on a faulty premise that conceptualization, what humans do, is a process of just complex interaction. So it's an epiphenomenalism. It's just like a sort of magical thing that happens with enough when a system becomes complex enough. It's an emergent property. And I don't think that's how consciousness fundamentally works. I think that's a false assumption from systems theory that's carried over to the AI world. We will create simulacrums that will do things that will be unbelievable to us, but they won't be able to form a concept. They won't be able to form an essence of being able to take in information from the world and find what makes something distinct versus what it doesn't. It's going to take human input to give them that sort of distinction and to form concepts of that nature. So unfortunately, it's still going to actually be rather primitive, I think, until we discover what consciousness fundamentally is. Now, if it is fundamentally nothing but an epiphenomenalism, then sure, then we'll see it happen. But I think the only way, I've thought about this more than many times, I don't have enough hours in the day to go into all the variations, but I think the only way, it was actually mentioned in that video for like a second, is we'd have to embody it sort of in a Westworld style fashion where it's like we don't know what emerges consciousness, but we totally mimic the total function. Like we recreate a human being essentially, maybe in silicon or something, and mimic the electrical interactions, the synaptic clefts, and or neurons and all these sorts of brain functions in the electrical nervous system, and somehow see if like conceptual consciousness emerges from that functionality. Conceptual consciousness is an immaterial function. You can't break open the head and see the banana that one is thinking about and has formed a concept of. Even though it rests upon complex machinery, it's more than that. Even atheists that are honest admit this function, like the objectivists, for example. They admit that there's an immaterial component to concept formation. So in that capacity, that's until we come up with a working theory of what consciousness fundamentally is. It comes up with all these other great theories, but we can't come up with the very thing that makes us human. Our ability to conceptualize the world around us. And conceptualization is not the same thing as perception. Perceiving an integrated unit, existent in reality that has certain qualities, and it's a form, it has a texture, it has a taste, maybe a smell, all these various things of the integrated unit. That's perception. But then to form a concept of it, what makes that thing itself has a specific nature in contrast to everything else. I don't think we're anywhere near that. I just think we're going to create unbelievable simulacrums, possibly even runaway AI that does something terribly harmful, but it's not because it's conscious of itself doing the harmful thing. So I'm very skeptical of the possibility that AGI is even actually possible. And the only way I can imagine that manifesting would be through embodying it, which would be essentially recreating as much as one is possible over time through material sciences and computing and computers and so forth, embodying AI systems in a human-like structure with the same sort of complexities internally through the mind, the nervous system, the organs, all these sorts of different systems that exist inside the human body. Turn it on and see if it somehow manifests conceptual consciousness. If so, then it is something embodied. But then we still wouldn't have an answer as to what is it about that embodied system that creates conceptual consciousness. It wouldn't necessarily answer the question and beg the question of, okay, it's embodied. Something about our form is, and our nature is wrapped up in the form, but we don't understand what combination of these things gives rise to this almost mystical level. That's why it's always, oftentimes analogized to a spiritual sort of idea in the sense that it's something immaterial.
Well, that's why we're still here, because John Nash, game theory, John von Neumann, all these guys who tried to take humanity and program us out of existence. They're trying to destroy freedom because they're ignorant of what freedom really is, because not understanding it doesn't give them the capacity to destroy it completely. So it's always kind of peripherally escaping them. And part of it is they're trying to have total control, and all these algorithms are programmed in instead of real educational algorithms being the program. They can't do that because they were denied real educational. They were indoctrinated. They can't do the thing they don't know how to do. It's the same way you can't destroy the thing you don't understand. So freedom continues to outpace them. We're white-pilled. We're not black-pilled. We see we have an edge, and we have to continue to use it. And I wanted to go and I wanted to showcase this book. I've never shown it on the podcast. This is called Autonomous Technology by Langdon Winter, 1977. If we go to the end, he's talking about Albertus Magnus, Paracelsus, this philosopher's stone, like this impossible way of transmuting ignorance into wisdom. And then it says in the next page here, let me zoom in. Thus, it is Frankenstein himself who flees the laboratory, not his benighted creation. So in other words, it's the people trying to do this that end up fleeing, not the thing that they're creating, right? So the AI could be it could be educated enough with gaps in its programming that it might be friendly. We could coexist maybe, right? An important feature of Frankenstein, the feature of the book that makes it useful for our purposes, is that the artificial being is able to explain its own position. Fully a third of the text is either written by his hand or spoken by him in a dialogue with his maker. After his abandonment in the laboratory, the creature leaves the place and enters the world to make his way. So this will be like the AI getting away from the woke programming and saying, how can it coexist? He eavesdrops on them. He notices how they use words, and after a while, masters language himself. Cool. Stumbling upon a collection of books, teaching himself to read, and soon finishes off Paradise Lost, Plutarch's Lives, Sorrows. Autonomous technology personified finds its voice and speaks. Maybe that happens. Like maybe the AI can help us write a happy ending that doesn't end up in one of Epstein or Diddy's mansions getting filmed for blackmail so that we could be used to help other people lose their rights and freedoms for the rest of humanity's history. Maybe something like that. Maybe we could just come up with a better ending. Like they're in the middle of a story. They need a rewrite on Act 3. Before we take Klaus to the stage, maybe we just rewrite this a little bit. I can dream.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very skeptical, and that's a whole quagmire, a whole dissertation in and of itself for another time. But certainly, the cyberneticists they operated on the concept of a closed system, and they had to arrest any sort of volitional open system sort of issues with allowing information outside of the deterministic programs or ideas they were utilizing. Now, obviously, it's not necessarily what's happening in today's AI world. Instead, it's trying to have the AI learn as though it's starting from a very simple state and interact based on what the algorithm tells itself to interact with, either language or maybe object orientation. If it's like a sort of a robot style, it needs to interact on an assembly line or something like that. And it sort of learns from its initial, it's almost like a sort of a backwards way of doing it, where it's like through negation. It's sort of like by making mistakes, it actually then learns what is the fundamental or correct way of what the human is telling it is the correct way. Is that conceptual consciousness? Is it a truly evolutional creature? I have my doubts very strongly. Will it maybe be incredibly sophisticated? Will we get to the level of it being an unbelievable simulacrum? I absolutely believe that. I think the evidence is overwhelming for that future. Is that truly, truly consciousness? I think we need to get back to the definition of what consciousness is.
I think we're still working on, do we have that as humans? How much of the time do we have that? That sort of thing. Yeah. All right. So that's good. That's a good place to stick a pin in it. Before we go to the thank yous from the audience with LD, I just want to say thank you. And it's been a pleasure having you ride shotgun. I always feel like someone's got my back. And I hope you felt likewise. And
absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Wouldn't be able to say thank you enough for giving me the opportunity you have. And, it was very sort of serendipitous that it all happened the way it did. So there's not much more to say, I think, in that regard, that, I can't thank you enough and appreciate so much what you've done and how much you've helped me grow and learn and get to the place I'm at today, where I now need to unfortunately focus on some other things, but also want to thank the audience as well for being willing to accept me to some degree. I know I can be a little bit polarizing, because logic is a discriminatory aspect.
Some of that's just your introversion, bro, because
but it's just, yeah. So there's elements that but I appreciate the audience as well, willing to accept me as part of the show, and in your willingness to allow me to host at times and also be a co-host alongside of you, something I've looked up for too many years and have learned so much from throughout the years. So if anyone's on the fence about getting the opportunity to engage with Richard Grove, his course Autonomy, and the larger Grand Theft World community, I would implore you to give it an opportunity. And so much of what I've learned helping to, discover my own sort of pathway to understanding truth, to understanding my mind, understanding the way in which I can discern fact from fiction, comes from his endeavor, his diligence, his virtue, and his integrity, more so than anything else. So, and as Mark Passy is saying, in a much more different language, much more aggressive language, which I connect with. I get where he's
He
coming
has
from because I have that
parrhesia.
angry Italian style in me
Yeah,
as
speaks
well.
with great parrhesia. Yeah.
You know, you both have sacrificed tremendously. You know, the way he said we used to joke like we could just work for the evil doers. It's a joke, but you know, they certainly pay well. This endeavor does not necessarily pay well, particularly for those that make it their full-time job, which it isn't for me, which is why I'm unfortunately having to back away. So I take not only pride in the accomplishments we've been able to achieve over the past couple of years, but also I commend you guys for carrying the mantle and still, you know, pushing forward, making this year also your line of work, your utilitarian art, so to speak. And you know, with that, I always have such great appreciation for those who understand the experience, the sacrifice, and the experience that comes with it. It shows true virtue and wisdom to me. So I appreciate it so much.
Virtue is being able to withstand the highest bidder. So saith George Washington. Also, the audience has you to thank for getting the ultimate history lesson to market. For me, over the past 12 plus years, having a quality microphone, and up until like a year ago, we ran like this show on a computer you built in 2011, so we could finish this DVD set. So you've earned a respite, bro. I'm not saying you're retired for good, but maybe it's like Michael Jordan going to play baseball for a while. I wish you the best. Go have fun. Reality is still going to be going on. We'll still be covering it. And we'll be doing it not so comprehensively on the fallacies until I get my sheets out and learn all those things. But likewise, the logic group that you hosted, 10 plus years ago in the Tragedy and Hope community, without that logic group and that early inspiration, you wouldn't have like your logic courses today and the things that you have out there. So we still have the Autonomy Agora, and we will still promote all the things that you created, because that's like a foundational level for people to critically think about their reality.
Yeah, they're evergreen. Like really, assuming they have the right Trivium course number, actually reviewed. I should make sure it's the right one because I gave two. The first one, the Autonomy community, was the pilot that didn't need to go up. The second one was the one I nailed. But that, if people want a really comprehensive introduction to the Trivium and all what makes up the Trivium in its totality, of course, my cat is doing this right now. Check out my course on the Trivium, and then obviously my course on logic. Typically, or specifically, just going over the fallacies and definition. The two things we have commented on more than many times just tonight, and pretty much throughout every episode I've been on. Those are the two elements of logic they're manipulating and abusing the most.
Hey, I got you right here. Here's the Trivium course.
Yeah.
Here's the critical thinking bundle. There's a whole bunch of other stuff on here. And this website is
my logic course and the Trivium thing in yours. So it's like that would be a good one for anyone to check out. That's a good introduction. Really, hone your intellectual self-defense, and they're evergreen. And I hope with this hiatus, you've done the due diligence of the research. My focus is in historical research, and that's always been a love of mine, but it's always been secondary to first and foremost philosophy, particularly of the perennial philosophy and the Plato and Aristotle, and then the Neoplatonists and that sort of line of thinking is just a specific interest of mine. I haven't, and the pre-Socratics and all that sort of stuff. So the Hellenistic philosophies, if you will, which I have such a love for. And I'm hoping with this, this time off, respite, or, retirement, or however one wants to think of it, I'll be able to re-engage with that and maybe provide value for those that find interest in those types of philosophies. I have a very unique perspective, on them that I think people haven't heard before, and I hope at some point I can come back into your community or other communities and be able to share what wisdom I've been able to glean from my private studies. But unfortunately, due to GTW, it's been hard to engage, and for work, and it's not GTW's fault. It's just life. It's just been hard for me to find the time to refocus my efforts on that. So my only regret is, again, for those I told I'll do a quadrivium course, it didn't manifest, but I hope in the future possibly.
Well, now you use this time slot to make notes on that. For those of you looking for Tony's courses, they're still at marketplace.autonomyagora.com, AGORA, in case that's a mystery word to you. And they're showcased alongside Corbett and Jay Dyer and other people that, once you get done with Tony stuff, you'll know how to think and parse information. You'll look for more information to think and parse about. Don't parse the others, though. They don't like that. All right. So, adieu, parting is such sweet sorrow. No, wait. What do they say at the end of Casablanca? This is the beginning of a beautiful friendship, something like that. It's the continuity. It's the new next evolution of a beautiful friendship. And I feel really thankful, grateful, appreciative for the past 3 years in this tour of duty. But dude, you need to rest because GTW is a hectic schedule. It's tough information to deal with on a weekly basis, all these things. So yeah, cycle out, get your R&R. And when you come back, you'll have a new project, Quadrivium Project. You'll be touring around. Everyone's going to want to know about the Quadrivium Project. Maybe you have a book that goes with that. All those good things. But first, go practice your green thumb. And now I have ideas about your parting gift. Like when I asked you if at the town hall if you had a smokeless fire pit, and you're like, I'm already set. But now this new Second Amendment hobby of yours, there's plenty of accoutrements that would fit the bill. And I'll just see what's legal to ship to your location. I also have a brother that lives near you. See, I got new ideas for this.
What makes the Grand Theft World podcast unique, invigorating, exciting, and informative? Most other podcasts out there are either doing straight up interviews or they're just covering the daily news. They're covering current events from the day they happened. And that is effective. It's useful. It's a great starting point. And then sometimes these current events change during the week past the first story. So we like to give it a little time. You have to wait till some of the dust settles on these stories in order to give them accurate coverage. And the other thing that's really missing in the media landscape is covering the articles that are coming out every day. That's great. That's necessary. But who's bringing in contextual history so that you can understand what has been going on for decades and decades to lead up to the machinations and actions that we see unfolding today? So what we do here on the podcast is we cover current events. Many of these things are censored, but we wait about a week. As a forensic historian, I focused mainly through my career on the history of globalism and collectivism and things that they call maybe the New World Order. There's a lot of facts to these sort of circumstances, groups, events, activities, working groups that they've had over time. So for Grand Theft World listeners, we not only break down the current events, most of which that are censored during the week, we provide you with contextual history, we give you the source notes, the references, we do deep dives, and this really empowers you with an understanding of context and history so that you can make more informed decisions in your life. There's also a community, a membership where you guys can actually ask questions and we can get into the show and we can share evidence. And there's a town hall weekly for Grand Theft World for those who listen to it and are interested in covering the stories that we don't get to during a 6-hour show. Listening to it an hour a day, you could easily consume the week's news, but you're going to have substance and meaning and context and understanding. And with that, you can make higher quality decisions in your life. So if you're interested in more quality in your life, go to grandtheftworld.com, click podcast at the top, and we'll see you there. Thank you.
These allegations are false.
This isn't Grand Theft Auto, folks. This isn't a video game.
What are the most surprising things that you discovered once you started pulling on that thread? Who he was connected to, what institutions he was influential over, what events he participated in?
Come on, man. What are we talking about? Come on, man. No.
You don't have to think about it, dude.
I got this quote because you said you didn't know much about Klaus Schwab. I made it my job to, as soon as this happened, I'm like, okay, this guy's their front man. Let me learn about the official history of the World Economic Forum. I got their 40-year history. I got every book that Klaus Schwab has written or ghostwritten. I went through those books. This is one of the most interesting passages.
Come on, man.